Hey guys, Ron here, and there is no shame in not fully understanding the idea and concept behind a Pokemon. There are a few Pokemon you probably don't understand. We all start from somewhere. Not everybody's job is to research Pokemon and make videos about them on the internet. I did not know what Claydol was supposed to be until I did. But this video isn't about teaching you the straightforward origins of some Pokemon, but rather the Pokemon with multiple layers. Not Pokemon like Archeops, for example, because even if you don't know its obscure origin, the Archaeopteryx, once I tell you, you fully understand. That's it. It's based on this ancient animal. But there are Pokemon that if I told you their origins, you still may not actually fully understand the concept of that Pokemon. Here's a great example. You may think you know the origin of Luxray, its family is based on lynxes, but that doesn't mean you fully understand this Pokemon. What do I mean by that? Well, why is Luxray a lynx with X-ray vision? The answer is because lynxes are known for their reflective eyes, and in various folklore are thought to be able to see through objects and even the mind. Their name even comes from the word for light in languages like Greek. You may have known Luxray's origin, but not fully understood it. That's what this video will cover. Huge design traits or concepts that are sometimes misinterpreted or unnoticed. Not Easter eggs or minor hidden secrets in a Pokemon's design that don't really matter in the grand scheme of the Pokemon's concept, but rather entire aspects to these Pokemon that may have gone over your head. And if they haven't, cool! Let's see how many of these you already know. If you come out of this video with a newfound appreciation for at least one Pokemon, I've done my job. I won't mention Pokemon whose multi-layered origin has been mentioned on this channel countless times, like Castform, Executor, or Absol. Find those videos on my channel yourselves. Quillfish is an easy one to start with. Almost everybody knows it's either a pufferfish or a porcupine fish, but its coloration, body type, and tail also indicate that it's also supposed to resemble a naval mine. Makes sense since it explosively shoots out poison spines in all directions. Dragapult, on the other hand, shoots out baby Dreepies from its face holes. It's way cooler than it sounds, but another ability it has is to disappear. What's fairly clever about this Pokemon's entire concept is that its ghost typing and powers line up with all three of its origins. It's based on an extinct amphibian, therefore a ghost, and a stealth bomber, all of which disappear in some aspect. It's not just a neat idea, but a cohesive and general combination of relevant elements. The element of fire is fairly interesting too, and like Dragapult, is heavily associated with certain amphibians. Charmander and Salandit, both salamanders, are clearly on fire. Not because Game Freak thought it was cool to light them on fire, but rather because medieval folklore and much of modern media showcase how salamanders were believed to be born from fire, resist fire, and at times act as fire elementals. Bulbasaur, another Kanto starter, while having vague features that resemble various ancient creatures, has been said by its creator, Atsuko Nishida, to have been inspired by frogs. All of the Kanto starters are inspired by pets that children can have in the real world, making them familiar and friendly looking right off the bat. Happiny is as friendly looking as possible, but while it's very well known that the egg in its pouch is actually just a rock it found because it likes to play mother, did you know that Bonsly isn't actually always acting like a baby? While it looks like it's crying a lot, it's actually adjusting its body fluid levels by eliminating excess water. It's a cool take on the fact that this family is hydrophobic. They took Sudowoodo's fear of water and played with the concept in its baby form. Wobbuffet and its baby form have a completely different aspect to them that only the Japanese fans may catch on to. Wobbuffet's Japanese name translates to "that's the way it is," which is part of the catchphrase of Japanese comedian Sanpei Hayashiya, who would also put his hands to his forehead and say, "That's the way it is, ma'am." This concept is expanded upon with Wynot's Japanese name translating to "is that so?" allowing for a perpetual conversation when both Wynot and Wobbuffet meet. One asking "is that so?" and the other saying "that's the way it is." Kinda like how a punching bag outputs what you give into it. Another Team Rocket sidekick, Beware, also has a design element that may have gone a bit unnoticed. While it cleverly combines the term bear hug with an actual bear, its proportions, expression, and design are akin to a bear mascot costume, which makes sense since Stuffle is based on a plush. And I would love an Applin plush. It too is more than meets the eye. It's clear that it's a worm in an apple, but some may not get that it's both a pun on a worm, a type of dragon, as well as literally a lindworm, a type of serpent-like dragon found in British heraldry that has 2 arms and no wings. To top it all off, serpents are commonly associated with apples. The name is even a pun on apple, lindworm, and inside. People made fun of it when images were leaked, but it's actually one of the most layered Pokemon concepts. Kinda teaches you to not judge a Pokemon before learning about it. So how about a little speed round to learn as much as possible? Girafarig is inspired by the concept of a push-me-pull-you, a conjoined animal whose inspiration is very much clear in Girafarig's beta form. Delcatty's neck pillow isn't just for show. The entire idea of this Pokemon is that it's nomadic. Delcatty roams around and sleeps anywhere it wants, so a neck pillow is a logical evolutionary advantage. Charjabug is a battery, and Vikavolt is a railgun. Toucanon is a literal cannon with a fuse and beak that lights up to charge and then shoots out heat. It even uses the beak to warm its eggs. Spritzy is based on a perfume bottle, with its tufts of hair representing the cap top or knob thing on a glass perfume bottle. Amped form Toxtricity has 6 chest protrusions like the 6 strings of a guitar, while Loki form has 4 like a bass. Avalugg, while clearly a tabular iceberg, is also a handy aircraft carrier that carries little berg mice on top of it. Naganadel is actually inspired by the work of artist H.R. Giger. The entire color scheme of a copper Raja is based on the fact that orangish copper, a material often used to make Asian elephant statues, turns green when rusted. Now let's slow it down with some more big boys. To those who use it, it's super obvious, but some don't realize that Grimmsnarl's entire body is covered in hair that he uses to attack. It's what makes up most of its bulk. Easy, like beating up a Dunsparce. While you may know that it's based on a Japanese cryptid called the Tsuchinoko, this short mythical snake is also named Bachihebi, or bee snake. That's the reason Dunsparce is yellow, winged, and striped. While we're on the topic of bugs, Larvesta is clearly a moth larva. The coronas around Larvesta are inspired by the Tower of Sun in Japan. Hoot Hoot would love to gobble up a lowly Larvesta, but since this Pokemon is a big promoter of Johto's day and night cycle, this nocturnal animal has a clock as forehead feathers. I guess it's bird time. Farfetch'd, while a duck with an onion, is based on the Japanese saying, a duck comes bearing bunching onions, which is used to refer to something that is surprising yet convenient. Sirfetch'd design actually tells a story. The shield it has is actually the top half of a leek. See? Also, while probably not a reference, it's interesting to know that onion knights in various media can refer to knights from humble and peasant beginnings, like Sir Davos from Game of Thrones, who literally smuggled onions, but that's a whole other story. While a lot of Europeans had their knights, the Vikings had their berserkers. Berserker is based on those hulking warriors who would get inebriated and go into a trance-like state, rampaging everywhere. When Berserker attacks, with its dagger-like claws, its eyes go back into its head like it's under a spell or a trance, just like Berserkers. Another warrior Pokemon, Phalanx, is based on the Phalanx formation of ancient Rome. I'm sure people noticed the Roman soldier attire, but I'm sure enough people don't know what a Phalanx is. And I don't expect you to know what a Yamata no Orochi is. It's a legendary 8-headed Japanese serpent and the primary inspiration for Hydreigon. But other than its multiple heads, there's a huge design element that's a reference to its origin. According to Game Freak, its 6 wings are supposed to resemble heads when this Pokemon is silhouetted, making it look like Hydreigon has 9 heads, one more than the legendary Orochi. Pretty creepy, like Dalmai's. It's a ghost steering wheel and anchor, but the reason it's ghost grass instead of ghost steel is because the seaweed is the actual Pokemon. The seaweed is possessed, not the anchor. The seaweed even makes a pattern of menacing teeth on the anchor. That's smart design right there. Cursula is a ghost coral, but why? Because it's a reference to dead coral, an increasingly common phenomenon when entire coral reefs start dying and become white, especially during climate change. The Galarian fossil Pokemon are obviously mix and matched ancient creatures, but why? Apparently there are some infamous British scientists that would combine fossils of various creatures as if they belong to the same skeleton. The Poliwag family are frogs, but why the swirl stomach? Because some amphibians, like the glass frog, have transparent skin and their intestines, like the swirly ones of these tadpoles, are completely visible. Porygon 2 naturally feels like an updated version of Porygon, but unless you somewhat studied 3D computer graphics, it may not be too obvious that the smoothness of Porygon 2 represents subdivision of the surfaces of 3D objects. The original Porygon was made in a time before the formulas for subdivision. The entire origin of Probopass has been discussed multiple times on this channel, but some people still don't know that his mustache is literally iron shavings that have been magnetically attracted to its nose. Zigzagoon isn't a raccoon, but rather a tanuki or raccoon dog, an animal closely related to foxes. A lot of its moves, like Belly Drum, are direct references to the actions of tanukis in Japanese mythology. Whimsicott is partially based on a sheep, specifically a ram, considering it has those green horns, cotton wool, and even represents Aries in the Unova horoscope. The Vanillish line isn't literally ice cream, they're sentient beings in the shape of icicles, with snow that is sculpted in the shape of the dessert. Ice cream was most probably inspired by these creatures in the Pokemon world. When Honedge is sheathed, it looks like it has a mouth and 2 additional closed eyes, but this is just a smart little incorporations of the pattern it has on the sword. You see, it's just part of the metal and looks like a face when inside the sheath. Lurantis is actually not an orchid mantis, it's a mantis orchid. Unlike the real-world orchid mantis, which is a bug that camouflages as a flower, Lurantis is a grass-type flower that is in the shape of a praying mantis. It's not a bug. Pinkurchin is not only a sea urchin, but also a pincushion. Raboot's design isn't out of left field. It's still based on a soccer or association football player like Scorbunny and Cinderace. However, it's in training mode, what with its headband and tracksuit. Before we move on to the last 6 Pokemon, here are some honorable mentions. Pokemon that need to be talked about just in case, even though I'm sure you understand them by now. Wailord is partially blimp related. It's very light and known as the float whale Pokemon. Flygon is based on the antlion, not dragonfly. This makes sense since Trapinch is clearly an antlion larva and his ability Arena Trap is literally called antlion in Japan. Serperior is based on French aristocrats, specifically Lady Oscar from the Rose of Versailles. Ken Sugimori has stated that Embor is partially based on Zheng Fei, a famous Chinese general. To fully understand the Simmies, you need to watch this video. I'm linking to it in the top right since it would take 3 minutes to explain them. Scrafty is wearing its shedded skin. It's a lizard. Stunfisk looks like that so it can hide in mud and zap anything that steps on it. The Swords of Justice are based on the 3 Musketeers, and their appearances directly relates to the description of each Musketeer in the book. The Forces of Nature are not genies. They are mostly based on the thunder and wind gods Raijin and Fujin from Japanese mythology, what with the clouds and even the tails representing the tools that each used. People know that Kyurem looks so misshapen and asymmetrical because it's all of what remains after a single dragon split into Reshiram and Zekrom. Malamar is an upside-down Inkay. Gumshoos is based on and named after old slang for detectives. Komo-O has clanging scales. This one is super obvious, but people still complain that it has too many scales, as if that's not the purpose. Now for the final few entries of the list. Hoppip has many references to its cat origins. It can be bred to learn Payday, which is called coin for a cat in Japan, and its beta is more clearly based on a feline. But why? Well, Catseer is the name for a plant that is often mistaken for a dandelion. Since the family is called the cottonweed Pokemon, we don't know which specific family of plant they are, but looky here. Hoppip is the only one in its family to have literal cat ears. Lugia and Ho-Oh have mythical animals that each are based on, but why do they exist as counterparts in the first place? Well, their entire myth is based on the real-world temples of the Gold Pavilion and Silver Pavilion in Kyoto. Each has a gold or silver Ho-Oh, or Japanese phoenix, on the top. The Golden Temple burned down in the 50s and was rebuilt. Luckily for Ho-Oh, its tower was safe, while Lugia's tower was the one that got destroyed. Grumpig is a pig. Good job on noticing that. But pigs are actually associated with pearls in various media. Why? Glad you asked. In the Bible, there is a phrase that states, "Neither cast ye your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet and turn again and rend you." Which basically means you don't give pigs jewelry, they'll just tear it apart and then attack you. Casting pearls before swine is a phrase against those who offer something valuable to someone who wouldn't appreciate it. This is a juxtaposition in Grumpig's case, since it's the opposite. Grumpig is smart enough to use the pearl to enhance its psychic powers. Like Orbeetle, a ladybug, but what ties its entire family together? What is the theme? Well, radar. Blipbug is a ladybug larva that looks like a little bookworm or egghead, a nerd with giant glasses. Its name is reference to the blips you hear on a radar. Dottler is named after the dots you see on a radar, and the Doppler effect, used in specialized radar technology, is based on a ladybug pupa with design traits of both a radar dome and a scientist who has retreated into its lab, while evolving into a mad scientist ladybug with a huge brain and various radar design elements. It even Gigantamaxes into a UFO. But a Pokemon with an entirely extraterrestrial origin is Celesteela. It's based on Princess Kaguya from the Tale of the Bamboo Cutter, one of the most famous stories in Japan. It tells of an adopted baby girl found inside a stalk of bamboo by loving bamboo cutters, who grows up to be an extraordinarily beautiful woman who is sought after by multiple princes and is later revealed to be from the moon and returns to her people. So nowadays in Japanese culture, Kaguya is associated with spacecrafts, aliens, the moon, and bamboo. And what is Celesteela? A bamboo space rocket woman in a kimono. Bam! Like the video in honor of that cool connection. Subscribe if you haven't already. Check the description for all the music I used, the t-shirts I made you guys, my Patreon where you can get cool rewards like seeing my videos days early, or press the join button for even more rewards like getting discounts on merch. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and I'll see you guys very soon.